He waited a long time to get his break in Hollywood, having played on the stage for years. When he finally landed a starring role in a major film, one of the first great science fiction movies, it seemed his career was finally taking off. But it wasn't that easy. His career didn't blossom the way he had hoped. Still, he made a steady living doing what he loved. He would spend much of his television and film career portraying authority figures, police detectives, sheriffs, military men, and attorneys. Although he worked constantly across television, film, and theater for over 50 years, he is best remembered for his role in 1950s science fiction films, especially the 1951 classic The Thing from Another World, in which he played Captain Patrick Henry. That role secured his place in sci-fi film history. Today I present a 19-minute, totally incomplete biography of Kenneth Tobey. Kenneth Jesse Tobey was born on March 23, 1917 in Oakland, California to Jesse V. and Frances H. Tobey. He had 2 younger brothers. We don't know much about his early years, but after graduating from Roosevelt High School in 1934, he enrolled at the University of California, Berkeley, intending to study law. However, his path went another direction. A native of Oakland near the university campus, he had planned on being a lawyer. But one afternoon he dropped in on a campus production where spectators were invited to stand up and make criticisms. It was the first play Ken had ever seen in his life, but he rose and remarked that the show didn't seem lifelike. "If you know so much about it," the response ran, "show us how." In an eventual campus lead, he won a San Francisco Critics' Praise for one of the most natural performances ever seen on a college stage. "60 speaking parts and 20 supernumeraries will comprise the cast of Johnny Johnson, first fall production of the University of California Little Theater. Kenneth Tobey will play the title role of Johnny Johnson. His brilliant red hair will make him a distinctive and pictorial outstanding laughing gas hero. The role of Johnny, honest, idealistic, triumphant in his defeat, was sincerely and sensitively played by scarlet-haired Kenneth Tobey. In New York, he would become best friends with another struggling actor, one he met at the University of California. There he again met Gregory Peck, whom he had known slightly on the California campus. Greg, in fact, was one of the actors he had criticized. For a time in New York, they shared a $10 a week room. They acted in outlying theaters in a southern town when Peck forgot his lines. Tobey spoke them from backstage while Greg mouthed the words. That was the start of a real friendship, Ken recalled. Tobey studied for a year and a half at New York's Neighborhood Playhouse along with Peck. Other young actors at the Playhouse were Eli Wallach and Tony Randall. Peck and Tobey ended up traveling together all over the East looking for work. Gregory Peck as Ed and Kenneth Tobey as Al turn in good performances. Berkeley product gets dramatic lead. Kenneth Tobey, whom theatergoers here will remember for his work at the Little Theater at the University of California, has a leading role in the current production Excursion at the Barter Theater, Abingdon, Virginia. Tobey, who has been attending the Neighborhood Playhouse in New York for the past year, has appeared in a number of Barter Theater productions this year, including Family Portrait and Margin for Error. He's 6 feet tall, red-headed, and a pal of Gregory Peck since the two attended the University of California together. Greg tells me that during the lean days on Broadway, he and Tobey used to borrow quarters from each other for eating money. We were all over the place, back east looking for acting jobs. We landed at the Barter Theater in Virginia where we were paid in food and vegetables, which the audience brought as admission money. I ate so many tomatoes that I acquired an anidosis and nearly died. The Male Animal was the first show that paid me real money, and that was at Suffern, New York on the Straw Hat Circuit. A New York producer saw me there and gave me a part in As You Like It. That brought me to the attention of the producers of Joan of Arc starring Ingrid Bergman, and I got an excellent role with that great star, and I'm still devoted to her. It has been reported that Ken was in the United States Army Air Force during World War II as a rear gunner aboard a B-52 bomber. I found very little information about that, just the occasional mention in the newspapers. Incidentally, the red-headed sailor whose name I couldn't find in the somewhat confused program is Kenneth Tobey, living in the same apartment house that I do. He told me so himself. A rising young actor to keep your eye on, he's a real hit, I'm certain. Kenneth Tobey as Colonel Ted Martin plays his few but potent scenes with poignant realism. I did 29 Broadway shows. Don't ask me to name them, he laughed. A lot of people do remember me from Broadway. It's nice that people remember you at all. It doesn't matter from what. Soon it was time for Hollywood, and it took his best friend to get him there. Ken is one of Greg's best friends and, incidentally, his protege. It was Greg, Ken's classmate at the University of California and later at New York's Playhouse, who snatched the brick top from Broadway stages and dragged him to Hollywood. The story goes that Peck was already in Hollywood while Ken was still in New York. Peck sent Ken a message to come to Hollywood to appear with him in the Summer Theater at La Jolla. After that La Jolla stint, I expected to return to the East, but Gregory Peck said no. He took me into his home for 8 months and also got me a role on his film 12 O'Clock High. I paid no board and did some babysitting on the side for extra dough. I'd take Henry Morgan's 4 kids to the zoo in the afternoon. The youngest still calls me, all as one word, Ken Tobey. Kiss Tomorrow Goodbye adds 2 more actors. Ken Tobey and Robert Carnes are among the later additions to Kiss Tomorrow Goodbye, starring James Cagney.
Well, you know, it's a funny thing, Ralph. There's a guy around this town that's been wearing your fingerprints. Only his name is Pete Hannon.
I want you to think carefully and give the best description you can of the 2 men.
I don't know.
You don't know?
He acted in 14 films, mostly uncredited, but it was one of these parts that would lead to the film that he became famous for. Swell Gal Ann Sheridan boasts film newcomers. The actors who make movies with Ann Sheridan can't stop talking about it. Red-haired Kenneth Tobey rushes to make periodic progress reports on how much she's done for him. Cute Randy Stewart says she knew from the moment she met Miss Sheridan that it meant good luck for her. Tobey is the young man who plays the sailor who tries to keep Cary Grant from joining the War Brides in I Was a Male War Bride. Miss Stewart plays Miss Sheridan's pal in the same picture. Anne laughed so hard at my scenes in the making that executives started to take notice of me, Tobey said. I got 16 consecutive parts out of Anne's Yanks. But it's not so much the parts as the encouragement she gave me. She was the first big star who bothered to smile at me, introducing herself, tell me a funny story, and generally got me relaxed. I stopped freezing up in front of the camera. I'd done a picture for Howard Hawks called I Was a Male War Bride. That was supposed to be a daily job, but Cary Grant and Ann Sothern laughed so much at what I did, I have no idea what I did, that Hawks kept writing new scenes for me. And at the end of the picture he said to me, "You know, I'm going to star you in a picture someday." Nothing more was said. So I kept my eyes and ears open as far as the next picture, and when I read about the thing in the paper, I called him and he said, "I was just going to call you, come in and see me." Kenneth Tobey has been signed by Howard Hawks for the male lead in The Thing, Winchester Picture Productions for RKO, which starts shooting today. Of course, The Thing was made for RKO, the studio owned by Howard Hughes, and Tobey got to meet the man. He had an aide call me about 2:30 in the morning, and I'd come home a little inebriated. I told the aide, I can't meet a man like Hughes at this hour. I told the guy I had been out playing and so forth. He said, he just wants to look at you. I told him, oh, I look awful. I had just been awakened from sleep. The aide said, he just wants to meet you. So I thought I better go or he might say no. So I went over there and he took a look at me and said, okay. That was it, Ken laughed. This was at Hughes's little office across from RKO, a terrible little office. He probably owned the whole block. I walked in and he stared at me, looked me up and down and said, okay. That was my Howard Hughes experience.
Well, your legs aren't very pretty, and
I
I
didn't
didn't...
have to write it on a note and put it on my chest. Other people got up before I did.
I'm sorry,
At
Pat,
least
I really
6
didn't
people
mean...
read that note before I woke up. Now the whole Air Force is laughing at me.
Not so loud, they'll hear
They
you.
probably already heard.
I don't tolerate intrusions into my laboratory. Please don't touch.
This is what your late colleagues are doing in the greenhouse, Doctor. Except this is a distinct improvement.
The case comprises a lot of new faces, but Kenneth Tobey lends conviction to the role as the pilot, and Ann Sheridan is of such svelteness as to suggest another face for the pole might be in order. Suddenly he was a star, and young ladies took notice. In an interview with columnist Marilyn Marsh, he talked about why he doesn't date Hollywood cuties. "This glamour stuff isn't for me, no sir. Sure, they're good to look at, but they're too eager. I like to go out, but when I do, I'd like to go to some quiet place where I can have a nice dinner, a few drinks, and a lot of talk with my gal. If I take out a screen siren, the date turns out to be nothing more than a public exhibition, a 4-star performance with the background music of whispers and popping flashbulbs." This is sure death to any prospective Mrs. Tobey, for Ken is a modest, almost shy actor. Another unusual thing for a thespian. One thing the press focused on was Kenneth's very red hair, which the public really didn't get to see because all his films were in black and white. But even with all the publicity, Ken discovered that just because the studio has a star under contract, that doesn't mean they're going to take advantage of the situation. Ken Tobey, the easygoing redhead with a flair for acting, natural, is on Hollywood's fan mail hit parade since the doll swooned over the Air Force captain role in The Thing. But Ken is confused about his future, he told me. "I guess they're keeping me under wraps, if that's what you call it. I don't know what my next role will be." He hopes to play the newspaper reporter in The Harder They Fall, and if he lands that part, he says, he'll spend a week living and working with a fourth estater to give him an honest portrayal. "The studio bosses don't even speak to me, but the fan mail keeps piling up. I think my next assignment will be a tea dance at the Beverly Hills Hotel." Actor and singer elope. Actor Kenneth Tobey, star of The Thing, and singer Penny Parker announced yesterday that they eloped last June 29th to Quartzsite, Arizona. The Kenneth Tobey disappearing act at RKO even has studio insiders puzzled. He clicked as the Air Force captain in The Thing, but hasn't appeared in front of the camera since. The studio is also turning down all loan-out offers, 4 to date. Kenneth Tobey was put under contract at RKO after he made a real impression in The Thing, but after a year of inactivity, the contract has been canceled by mutual consent. Now Kenneth can accept offers he's been getting from other studios. It may not have been a smart thing to do. I got a little hungry after that. But career-wise, I don't think it made a damn bit of difference. I don't know if they would have renewed me or not anyway. By this time, however, Tobey continued, the film had been released too long ago to do me much good. So for the next few months, my routine was identical with one notable exception. There was no weekly paycheck. At this point, I was seriously beginning to doubt the wisdom in freelancing. Then suddenly, things began to happen. It always happens, department. After starring in The Thing, Kenneth Tobey went 8 months at RKO without facing the camera. Finally won his release. Now he's back at RKO for The Murder at 3 times his previous salary.
Now, don't tell me. Just let me hope.
Hello, Bill.
You know, in times like these, a guy can offer a girl a handkerchief or a double old-fashioned. What'll it be?
Both. Come on, you red-headed double-crosser.
Who, me? Tom. I didn't tell him about the animal.
Why not? Should have been in the report.
I went back to Post 18. I tried to reconstruct what happened out there. I couldn't find a thing. No tracks, nothing.
Along with some new films, Tobey began getting a lot of TV work. Every actor has his own special reason for leaping into the TV, and Ken Tobey's is the chance to play snarling, no-good heels. Cagney, Bogey, Richard Widmark, all of them got their start in real tough parts, red-haired Ken told me. I wasn't cut out to get anywhere playing nice guys. I wasn't cut out to sit around and wait for work either.
It might have gone on for years if it hadn't been for the and his wife.
Yeah, I guess so. Cost the country a lot less if Ravina had been a better shot.
Yeah. I don't know about you, Johnny, but I've learned one thing. The next time I set a stage, there's going to be better light.
Actors' freckles look artificial. Kenneth Tobey, who starred in Columbia as It Came From Beneath the Sea, has more freckles than any actor in Hollywood. However, not even one of his freckles will be visible on the screen. Believe it or not, his freckles are so sharp and distinct on the screen that they look artificial. They look as if a makeup man has painted them on with a brush. I started out in show business as sort of a satirist, Tobey says. I'm really a funny guy. At least my wife thinks so. She laughs at everything I say. Flame Top Special. Kenneth Tobey, actor, whose trademark is his bright red hair, finally gets to display it in films after many movie appearances. His next assignment, In Rage at Dawn, is his first in Technicolor. And having done so much television, it was time for Kenneth to have his own series. Helicopter Program! CBS TV has assigned Ken Tobey and Craig Hill to co-star in a pilot film based on helicopter pilots. The first filming of Whirlybirds will take place in the Red Rock Canyon of the Mojave Desert. Ken even began taking flying lessons to prepare him for the series.
Never heard of her. What about this? Blackmail added to attempted murder means a lot more than 5 years. I don't know what you're talking about. Come on, let's not waste time. We saw you talking to Mrs. Sandler in the Drifting Cafe. She told us you wanted $5,000. Blackmail.
In 1961, he returned to the stage in Big Fish, Little Fish at the Players Ring Theater, and then the play Golden Boy with Sammy Davis Jr. at the Majestic Theater. And sadly, that same year, he and his wife started divorce proceedings. The couple had a 3-year-old child, Tina Ray. And this is where our story ends. Of course, it didn't end for Kenneth Tobey. He kept on acting for years, decades in fact. He was one of those delightful character actors who popped up all the time, whether in bit parts or major roles across TV and film. With over 200 credits spanning film, theater, and television, there's no way I could list them all here. His final film appearance was in The Naked Monster in 2005, a low-budget sci-fi comedy where he reprised his most iconic role, Captain Patrick Henry from The Thing from Another World.
I've been fighting monsters since before you were born. It's never over until the final fade-out.
It was a full-circle moment, a wink to the fans. In Tom Weaver's wonderful book, Attack of the Monster Movie Makers, interviews with 20 genre giants, which I have used many times in this story, Kenneth Tobey, who was at the end of his career, summed up things this way. I loved being an actor. That's what I do. That's what I enjoy doing. It's hard work. Now people think it's a cushy job, but it's really not. Most of it. The long waits between jobs sometimes are not much fun, and the long waits on a set, waiting for a scene to come up, are not enjoyable either. But I've become accustomed to the way it works, and I feel I've had a career. Maybe not a great career, but what the hell. I won't retire. I'll just be found one morning dead, with one shoe on and one shoe off, and with a script in hand. And that day came on December 22nd, 2002. He had been suffering from an unspecified but extended illness and passed away at the Eisenhower Memorial Hospital in Rancho Mirage, California. He was survived by a daughter, 2 stepchildren, and 2 grandchildren. While he never became a major leading man, his talent, professionalism, and commanding presence made him a reliable character actor. Kenneth Tobey may never have been a household name, but for those who knew that face and voice, he was unforgettable. A reliable, commanding presence in countless stories that brought credibility and strength to every role he played. Tobey carved out a lasting place in American film and television history, one unforgettable performance at a time, often making whatever scene he was in just a little better.